Good evening, and welcome to tonight's meeting of, first we're going into the Muskogee Municipal Authority. Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman. Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum. Item 1, please.
Consider approval of MMA minutes of July 8th, 2019.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
The motion carries. Yes, and the motion carries. Item 2.
Consider approval of MMA claims for the month ending July 31, 2019.
Yes. Members of the authority, Madam Chair, please go ahead and look at the claims as you see them, including the money retained for capital projects. We do recommend approval.
Make a motion to approve claims.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. And that concludes the meeting of the Muskogee Municipal Authority. And next we will go into a special call meeting of the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority of August the 12th. Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman. Jamie Stout.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Good, we're here in force. Item 1.
Consider approval of special call minutes of July 22nd, 2019.
Have you
Move for
had-
approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 2.
Consider approval of resolution number 2777, adopting certain city council policies of the city of Muskogee, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Plunkett.
Madam Chair, members of the authority.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Sorry. This resolution would be to adopt many of the city council policies that would be in place for the employees that benefit for the operations of the Muskogee Municipal Authority for those employees.
Redevelopment Authority.
I'm sorry?
The Muskogee Redevelopment.
My apologies.
Okay.
Start all over? Okay. They're not an all-encompassing group of policies or specific policies that have been pulled out because they would not apply. And the executive director of the committee would approve those administrative policies that would apply. Of course, I recommend approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, questions or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the
Thank you.
motion carries. Item 3.
Consider approval of the fiscal year 2019-2020 tourism budget and accompanying recommendations as recommended for approval by the MRA Tourism Board, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes. Chairman Fricks is here to address the body. We asked the Tourism Board to come up with a budget within 45 days of the new fiscal year, and they have met that deadline and approved a budget, and they're bringing it forward for your approval here today. And I'll let Chairman Fricks go ahead and present that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller, and thank you, Mayor. As he mentioned, we had a relatively short period of time to come together on a budget. And so our committee, 11-member tourism board, worked very diligently to dig into this budget. We had a lot of questions, had a lot of recommendations that came forward, but ultimately we narrowed it down to the budget that you see before you with 3 additional recommendations. Some of the other recommendations that our different board members had were outside of the contract, the scope of the contract, and so we narrowed it down to these 3 that the board approved to bring on to you. The first was in regards to the activities guide. We felt like that the activities guide could be a revenue generator for the tourism fund. And so that was the first recommendation. The second recommendation was in regards to storage. In digging into the budget, it was our understanding that there's a couple different storage units that are utilized to store files and activities or brochures and some other things relating to tourism. Mr. Tucker brought up the idea that potentially there may be some city space that would be available to house those items instead of having to lease third-party storage units. And so that was the second recommendation. And the third recommendation was to create a tourism advertising marketing committee to help direct the expenditures made within the advertising line item. And those are the 3 recommendations along with this budget that's before you. Like I said, we had a lot of discussion, a lot of good recommendations, narrowed it down to those 3 because some of the others were outside the scope of the contract, and we tried to stay within the contract that the MRA approved and work with our tourism contractor the best we could, and that's what we have here today. Happy to answer any questions, and I believe the Justin from the chamber's here too if there's any other questions.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Representative Fix, I want to thank you and the committee, if you would express our appreciations for the work that the committee's done during this time period of fulfilling our guide of trying to get everything up and going. We really do appreciate the recommendation, and I really think the advertising committee is taking it to the next step of really looking into how we can really use the dollars that are going to tourism to better serve this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Make a recommendation for approval with those recommendations, with the amendments.
Second.
All right, are there any questions or discussion from the council?
So just for clarification, if I might, Madam Chairman, with regard to the recommendations, some of those will require not only MRA staff work, but also cooperation with our partners for the chamber. So that recommendation will be to adopt those and then direct staff to make sure that those items are brought forward in the appropriate manner. So I just wanted to clarify that those recommendations as adopted will require further work.
So could you repeat what the motion is?
Yes, Trustee Johnson's motion was to approve the tourism budget as presented and adopt the recommendations brought forth from the Tourism Board, directing staff to work with the contractor to finalize those recommendations.
So if any of the other recommendations that they were making to keep that in scope of the contract, would we be able to amend the contract at some point to maybe to fill in some of those other recommendations that?
Well, an amendment to the contract can be made with the agreement of
Right,
both parties,
both
of
parties.
course. And it would, if the trust wanted to give direction to staff at some point to recommend negotiating for those additional amendments, that's certainly possible and something we could do. But in order to do that, we would need direction from the body to move forward to make any recommendations or attempt to negotiate this contract, because it's not something we would take on ourselves,
Right.
because this is your contract that you've approved, and without further direction, we wouldn't take any other action unless directed to do so.
And at some point, Mr. Tucker, what would likely happen is that we'd have the chairman to come back before us with those other recommendations that we believe might need modification of the contract, and we'd hear that as a MRA.
And while that's true, I mean, that would certainly be one mechanism. The contract is between the chamber and the MRA. So the board, either the chamber or this board could decide at any time that there's some tweaks that need to be made to the contract or whatever, at which point staff would be directed to go back and attempt to negotiate those really on either side.
Thank you.
Okay, is it clear in everybody's mind? We know what we're voting for? No more discussion. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries, and that concludes that agenda. And we will move into the agenda of the Muskogee City Council for August the 12th, 2019. If you will stand for the invocation by Councilor Marlon Coleman, followed by the flag salute.
Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you so much for this opportunity, Lord, where you have blessed us to convene to conduct the business of this city. I pray, oh God, for the direction of your Holy Spirit as we move forward, that the decisions we make, oh God, will be for the betterment of these, your people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Here. Dan Hall. Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout. Here. Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Could we have a motion to excuse Councilor Hall?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. You've had a chance to see the minutes of July 22nd, 2019, and the special call meeting of July 15, 2019. What is your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. The consent agenda is items 1 through 15. Does anyone want anything taken off the consent agenda, put on the regular agenda?
Move for approval.
Okay,
Second.
discussion, roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Would you read item 16?
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of Ordinance 4076A, rezoning the property located between South 40th and South 48th Street, north of West Hancock Street, and south of Eagle Crest Drive, more particularly described in the ordinance from R1, Single Family Residential District, to A1, Agricultural District, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Thank you, and we will at this time open the public hearing and hear from Ms. Callahan.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This is a request from the property owners, the applicants Travis and Bridget Bearden. They have amended their request. Initially, it was to rezone the property that would include all 118 acres from the Eagle Crest subdivision south, and they have amended it to request to rezone approximately 105.13 acres, more or less, from the R1 Single Family Residential District to the A1 Agricultural District. There is a 405-foot area that abuts the Eagle Crest Estates, and that will remain residential. This is to allow for a new single-family dwelling, for them to develop a barn and farm animals in the future. This is the amended rezoning request. You'll see the highlighted in the red on your screens is the new area that is being requested for the rezoning. This slide shows the 405-foot area that would remain residential. This map shows the existing zones that are in the area. The blue that is in the hashtag is outside city limits. The lime green is currently zoned agriculture, and then the white is a single-family residential zoning classification.
To the north of the property is zoned R1 Single Family Residential, and it is the Eagle Crest Estates. And if the amended request, it would actually be the vacant land of the north side of the Bearden's property. To the south is outside city limits, but there is agriculture use. To the southeast is outside city limits, and it is agriculture use. And then to the east, it is actually zoned to the A1 agricultural district. There is agricultural use, and there is a single-family dwelling. To the west is also outside city limits, and there is agriculture use. And then this is the going down South 40th, where either side is pretty much an agriculture use currently. The amended request of the 105 acres is located between South 40th and 48th Street, and then it is 405 feet south of the Eagle Crest addition and down to Hancock Road. It is currently an abandoned 9-hole golf course, and we feel it's not feasible financially to be developed residentially due to the lack of infrastructure and the large floodplain area. The A1 agricultural district complies with the comprehensive plan and land use map, and staff recommends approval. Planning Commission and Public Works Committee denied the request for the initial 118 acres. Be happy to answer any questions. Then the applicants are here to address any questions.
All right. We have had some people sign up to speak on this question. And the first one I have is Robin Hopkins. So give us your name and address, please. You'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Robin Hopkins. I live at 4104 Eagle Crest Drive. Welcome. See all y'all today. And you know, I've lived out there longer than anyone else at Eagle Crest Estates. And this amendment, rezoning, really is not going to make that much difference from what the original rezoning was. It's still going to, they're still wanting to have agriculture, and that's what we're against. We want to keep it a single-family residential area and hope for future building in that area. And this would take us back 25 years if we went back to agriculture in that area. And there is, I mean, I put a lot of money into my home, and I know other people out there have too. But since I've lived there, I've added on to my home. I built an outdoor living area, and I wouldn't want cows out there in my outdoor living area. And you know, I didn't buy next to a farm, and I don't want a farm next to me. Some places already had farms and people built houses, that's fine, but I don't want a farm built next to my house now. And you know, we have a few problems with drainage out there already, and the mowing, and I just want to keep it a nice, clean, family-friendly area for us to continue to build. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. The next person who is Terry Miller.
Hello. How y'all doing?
Good.
My name's Terry Miller. I live at 4210 Eagle Crest Drive in the Muskogee city limits, and I've got a little thing to say here. I'm not going to repeat what I said last time. I'm not going to bore you with that, but I am going to give you a quick summary. We have 43 houses in Eagle Crest Estates with all families wanting to keep our neighborhood nice. We're not interested in livestock, so we're not interested in the agricultural zone next to us. We don't want an agriculture zone at our backyard. I have spoken about the future of Muskogee, how it looks better now than it's ever looked before, and I mean a lot better. There's a lot of things coming our way. We now have the Beardens wanting to increase the buffer zone, so to speak, by 250 feet. That's 83 yards. That's a sand wedge away for those people that golf. And for the crowd that doesn't golf, it's as far as the front door of this building to the front door of the Roxy across the street. That's not that far. We feel like that distance is an insignificant amount. That just doesn't mean a whole lot to us. In the last 2 meetings, we've been giving an unanimous vote, save one that was confused by the manner of the motion, as well as half of the audience. But we're asking the council now to vote with your heart and good old common sense. Please vote no to the agriculture and yes to the residents that we so love, and don't be swayed by a mere 83 yards. Thank you much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Our next speaker will be Leroy Walker Sr. Give us your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
I have 5 minutes. Good evening, Councilman. My name is Leroy Walker Sr. I live at 4205 Eagle Crest Drive. My wife and I have lived there a little over 15 years. We purchased that property with the intent of it being residential. When we looked at the property in front and behind us, it was golf course. We bought the property because it was on a golf course with the intention of what we understood, houses being built behind us in a future date. And that was one reason we paid the price we paid to live in a residential area with nice homes and good neighborhood, and we have developed that. Since then, the property has changed a couple of times since I've been there, and now it's been changed the 3rd time, and the Beardens is buying it this time. Like I said in the last couple of meetings, I believe the Beardens are good people. I met them when I made acquaintance with them and their children, but at the same time, we have 43 homeowners out there that have invested heavily in that addition with the understanding that we was looking forward to more houses being built. As I stated before, Muskogee is on an uptick. I believe from the bottom of my heart that Muskogee is getting ready to take off with housing, building, and development. And we need places when people come in to build houses. I know it's been stated that there's not a shortage or there's not a need for homes in Muskogee. But if anyone have been to any of the meetings over the last 4 to 5 years, that's one of the greatest needs in Muskogee. And my hope is that a builder will come in and see property that's already zoned residential and apply for a permit to build a number of homes. And I know a lot of times homes is built to the east side of Muskogee, but it's not a lot being built to the west. And each time a home go up for sale out in that area, it don't stay on the market long. It moves pretty quick, because people come out and they realize how quiet a neighborhood it is, how pleasant a neighborhood it is, and how many people keep their residents up. And I know the Beardens have talked to me, and I've talked to them about what they want to do with their children, and I can appreciate that. But like I stated in the last meeting, my wife and I have 14 grandchildren. The 15th is on the way. And we enjoy being out there, and just like they want to do for their children, I want to do the same thing for our grandchildren. And we want to be able to have a place to where they can play and where they can enjoy good living. So as I stand before you tonight, I hope and pray that you will consider where you have a number of residents in the area that are here tonight. If you wouldn't mind, can I have them all to stand to show the solidarity that we're here. So we're going to ask all the Eagle Crest, if you would, to stand. There's going to be a number more speaking. But we have come together in unity to vote against, and hope you would vote against this because of the fact that we're concerned. We've invested. We've all invested. As Terry said before, there's millions of dollars invested in homes out there right now. And my hope and prayer is that if that land stay residential, if a contractor come in, if the Beardens change it, if you all change it to agriculture, then at the same time, then it have to be changed back. And you know as well as I do, it's hard to undo something once it's done. And it was done when you all brought that in, when the city council brought that into residential, and now to reverse back, I think that's going backwards. So I hope and pray that you would vote no against this resolution and let it stand as residential as it is right now. And we appreciate your time and effort, and I'm going to give you back 20 seconds.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker should have stayed on her feet. Pearline Boyata.
My name is Pearline Boyati, and I live at 4207 Eagle Crest Drive. And of course, I ditto what has already been said. I have lived in my home for 21 years, since 1998. So to the mayor and council, Eagle Crest Estates is zoned and has been zoned as R1 for a number of years, even though we know the new owners purchased the property as R1. And they are great and wonderful people, and I thank God for them. But we're at the mercy of the city council that was elected to represent the majority of the folks in the city. And we have 43 that is in the majority. Your campaign hinged on that very thing, that you would represent the majority of the city. I stand here as a homeowner asking you, in the words of Spike Lee, to do the right thing. And even though I and the other residents and the Beardens, we all have that Burger King effect, we want to have it our way. But in the words of my late great husband, Ralphie Boyati, he made this statement and lived by it. We often said that he coined that phrase, and we really should have gotten it registered because we see it everywhere now. It is what it is. I respectfully ask the council to agree with me and other residents of Eagle Crest Estates and leave the property zoned as R1. Thank you. And I gave you 3 minutes and 29 seconds.
Well, thank you very much. We have one other speaker, Sean McCormick.
Hello, thank you for your time.
Yes. Give us your name and address.
Sean McCormick, which you just mentioned, 1917 East Woodland Circle in Muskogee, Oklahoma. The Beardens asked me to speak on their behalf today, and I was at first a little bit hesitant, inwardly hesitant, because I felt like I didn't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. I don't own the land, and I'm not a resident adjacent to the land. But then I started thinking about the big picture, and not to bloviate too much, but just a brief background. I'm a veteran. I've flown over 100 combat missions, and that's neither here nor there. But the reason I did that is because I believe in our founding principles of this country. And the most important one is freedom, or liberty, as you may say. And that's to allow people to have the freedom to have the pursuit of happiness. The Beardens bought this land, and there's only 3 things you can do with the land. I heard the term common sense thrown around. I looked at it on Google Earth. I drove out there. You can either develop it, which is right now financially non-feasible. They don't have the money to put the infrastructure in to develop it, so it's going to sit anyway. Number 2, you can farm it, or you can use it for pasture, hay it, put it to good use. It's unfeasible for them to mow that entire acreage. I mean, that's beyond reason to me to expect that. So they've got to do something with that land, and having a few cattle on there to graze, it'll help keep it down. We live in Oklahoma. I live in a nice neighborhood. I've driven through theirs. It's comparable. I live in a gated community. There's a pasture right south of my neighborhood. I've never smelt one cow. The cattle in the distance with the hay bales does not bother me. It's not affected our property value. So we're talking about ambiguous, unquantifiable concerns, and don't let numbers be the predominant factor in this. It's what's right and wrong. It's going to be much more injurious to the Beardens to not be able to have the request to use the land that they own. The city doesn't own it. Their neighbors don't own it. They own it. It's their land. And the government should not, at any level, interfere with the freedom of people that own their own land unless it is a compelling reason. And a few complaints about people that have ideas that they might have loss of value, or there might be cattle that they see that's just, it's amazing to me that that's so bothersome. is not a compelling reason to me to injure them much worse than the sight of a few hay bales and cattle. They're not going to be able to do anything with that land unless it's rezoned, at least temporarily. It's not a golf course anymore. As much as they want it to be a golf course, that's past. The land south of me, I moved there because of the beautiful view and the pasture and the hills, and I heard through the grapevine that the developer was going to build a bunch of houses out there. So I went and talked to him. And he said, yeah, we might do that. And I stated how unhappy I was with that because that's not what I moved out there for. I wanted to feel like I was out in the country. Well, he goes, well, it's our land. We're going to do what we want. And that's right. It is his land. He bought it. He should be able to do what he wants unless there's a compelling reason for him to not do so. I understand there's pragmatism involved, but I believe that the pragmatism is on side of the Beardens. And I hope that you will see reason here and use common sense, not be swayed by numbers of people talking, and think about the big picture. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. That's the last person who had signed up to speak, so we will close the public hearing and see what the council has to say.
I've got some comments.
Okay.
Might be good news for everybody. I took this gentleman to Heartland Surveying today, and Tony was busy, so we'll go back. He's got some money, willing to put in infrastructure. Mike could partnership on building. He's real intrigued by the Hilldale School District. Wants to do houses from 980 square feet to 1350. A lot of them that I saw were no garages, but people can put in carports. Anyway, he's real excited, wanted to get with the guy at Huffman, and I think I can get you guys together and we can do this residential deal. He's excited. Said, you know, Patrick, if I only sell half of them, you know, I can rent the other half out. He's got confidence in it. So it's a deal that's good for everybody. Everybody, well, not everybody gets what they want, but you guys can get out of the deal, and then everybody else can get what they want. Anyway, I'll share that with you. He'll be contacting you guys tomorrow, I guess. And I think we can put this deal together.
Mayor, I guess I would take the opportunity at this time. Once again, as I stated on last week, we really appreciate the spirit of the Beardens, and this is no attack or anything to crush the dreams that you may have for your family, but I do hear the cries of many crying for a safe area to raise kids, a term that they use called neighborhoods, which are deteriorating here in the city of Muskogee, a place for families to grow grandchildren, to be able to come back to this area and to one day have an inheritance. These are the things that I'm hearing. And so with that, I would like to see a neighborhood continue to grow in that area. And so at this time, I would once again make the motion that the denied be made at this time for the Bearden's request to rezone this for the agriculture area.
Second.
Mayor,
Yes.
may I, just to make sure that there are some specific points in your motion, Counselor, would you be willing to modify some of the language just so we incorporate the denial to include both the original request and the amended request, just so long as everything is clear as to what's being denied? And additionally, there should be a direction to staff to investigate the necessity to change the future land use map in that area. I think that may be prudent if you and Councilor Van are acceptable to amend your motion to that. It may help clarify matters. Tish?
I'm sorry, I don't know that it would change the motion, and I'm not stating it for that, but the Beardens would like to make a presentation, or if they still would like to speak on the item. And I don't know if they...
It's up to... The public hearing has already been closed, but it's up to the mayor and council if they want to entertain further comments, presentation.
Well, I don't think it would hurt anything for them to be able to speak their piece.
I would state that my motion will stand with the adjustments, and if you could, after the presentation, if you would like to do it then or now.
I'll restate it when you all are ready to vote, so that it's clear to everybody. And then we'll talk about what a vote yes and what a vote no means, just so that there's no questions.
Thank you.
And my second will stand.
Incorporating the changes as suggested.
On what Mr. Councilman Reed motion.
Okay, so which one of you would like to speak? Or both of you can speak together. I believe you did that last time.
First of all, I'd like to say this is a little confusing. We were told we didn't have to sign up because we are on the agenda.
That's right.
So we would be given time to speak.
Yes, you have it.
And this is quite alarming. You've chosen to let us speak, yet people are standing their ground without ever hearing us. And that's the problem with this whole situation.
Well, we won't vote until you're
nobody's willing to
finished.
listen. Nobody's willing to listen. Nobody's willing to take what we have to say to heart. And what we're presenting is facts. What other people present are not facts, they're presumptions.
Well, that's
So
fine.
this is alarming. This is an alarming situation that you guys aren't concerned about what we have to say or about the facts.
Well, we haven't voted yet, so if you would give us your interpretation.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, from our last meeting, I wanted to write down all the concerns of the residents in the neighborhood because that's what they're bringing forward. And so one of the biggest concerns was that that there is a need to provide residential housing desperately for our area. There are several lots available currently in the Eagle Crest subdivision that are for sale. So anyone in this chamber, anyone that's out there, can purchase those lots in the subdivision if they choose to, and they can build more homes. They can keep the HOA restrictions that are in that subdivision, and they can keep the covenants. The fact that we brought this up last week and we had to revise it, but because our information was a little incorrect, that the last building permit that had been issued for a new construction in the Eagle Crest subdivision was 2013, and the home was finished in 2014. It's 2019. So that is a concern of theirs, that there's not enough residential housing, yet there are lots for sale in that subdivision, and there has not been a new construction since 2013. The land currently for sale on 40th and Border Street, the 18-hole golf course, is for sale. It could be rezoned. It's zoned right now as public property, which could be for a golf course, public park, etc. Anyone in these chambers could purchase that land. It's for sale. That would be an excellent housing development. They have the water on Border Street that unfortunately we do not have on 40th Street available to us. So that's another avenue that could be done, which would also help with the north side of their property with the owner right now not taking care of it. One of the statements that was brought up last week was that we would be going backward if it was zoned agriculture with any cattle, whether it's 10 or less, 5 or less, that would be going backwards. The neighbors don't want to go back, or they don't want to regress, yet this has already occurred due to the virtue of the golf course went under. So now both sides, north and south of a subdivision, is in the state that it was previous to when the golf course was put in, because there is no golf course anymore. So this has already gone back to what it originally started as, pasture land, which we did not have any involvement in the golf course going down, neither did the neighbors. Next statement that was brought up is cattle getting out of fences. There is no existing fencing that can be used on our property, which is south of the subdivision. So if and when we chose to buy cattle and put cattle out on the 118-something acres that are left, we would have to put in all new fencing. More concern for us, and which should be a concern for the neighborhood, is people trespassing on the property, riding horses, doing four-wheelers that do not own the property. That could be a safety concern for children, grandchildren, whoever's out there. that would be a big concern that I would see brought up. Another thing that was brought up is asking the council members to do the right thing. Everything that I'm stating tonight, we are taking the emotion out of it. We're stating facts. The city council largely depends on recommendations from their departments to make decisions because the departments depend on facts. And is that not the case? I believe it to be so. The facts presented by planning and zoning were overshadowed by emotions and misconceptions about the land being zoned agriculture, which could be detrimental to their property values. Yet the city chose to hire the Hassel Levine, I'm not saying it correctly, associates out of Chicago that were hired in 2010 to do the land map as use. That's what they do. They're experts at that. This is a company that does it all the time. You guys hired them in 2010. It got adopted and passed by the city council in 2012. And their recommendation, not somebody that lives in Muskogee, not somebody, because they're experts in what they do on land usage, concurs with what your city department, planning and zoning, has already stated. The facts are, we're surrounded 3 different areas, 3 different sides are zoned to agriculture. 2 are county, 1 is in the city limits. Because of the floodplain issue on our land, which we're fine with because we're keeping that part for our home that we're building. Our kids can enjoy the creek. They can enjoy the ponds. That's fine. But 35 acres is undevelopable. Those are facts. Those are not emotions. Those are not what ifs. Those are not hearsays. Those are facts. Another thing that was brought up, keep a quiet, safe neighborhood. Do we not both, myself and my husband, and I'm using us both as, and then the neighborhood, do we not both want a quiet and safe neighborhood? Absolutely. The reason we purchased that property when we went out there and walked it is because it was so quiet. There are deer out there. There are turkeys. There are all kinds of creatures, which I love that. It is a quiet, safe neighborhood. So that being brought to the table, that we're not all in agreement on that, is not founded. Is pasture land not a quieter, best option to achieve that? Or would more development, which includes more homes, more traffic, more people, and more construction, is that how we keep a quiet neighborhood on one street going into a subdivision? The facts are on developing our land, 35 acres are in the floodplain. Ms. Tish has already presented that. I have a map with me. It's printed out very easily to see. We cannot hook to the water off of 40th Street due to the fact that the water line needs to be upgraded. We got a bid for that. We presented that last week. It was $265,000 because the city has not made improvements on that section on 40th Street. But we could do it at our cost, and then the city could take that over. Developing that land would cost $500,000. Now, we purchased that land because it's beautiful land. It's in Hilldale subdivision, or in Hilldale School District. Our kids go to Hilldale, and we are only trying to plot out a few lots to sell and then keep the rest for ourselves, for our kids. Property values will go down. We heard that from numerous people. I do due diligence, and so us being builders and knowing quite a few realtors, I contacted Stacy Alexander, Betty Blackwell, Andrea Dickerson, and Linda Sizemore. I also talked to Lillian Jane, but I'll get to her in just a moment. There are just a few realtors that I contacted. Every single one of those, minus Lillian Jane, and then I'll tell you why, absolutely agreed that having a pasture land to the south with a few cows does not, in any form or way, affect their property values. What affect the subdivision property values would be, these are the biggest deterrents. Everybody had the same ones. The apartments on 40th Street. The animal shelter, which is ran by the city, on 40th Street. The city dump, which is on West Hancock, for the smell and the proximity. Living on a non-working golf course was detrimental to their property values. And every one of them said the improvements that we've made we've owned it 3 months as of August 10th. 3 months. The improvements that we've made have already upped their property values. Now, I mentioned Lily and Jane. She said the only reason that she would not speak to this is because she hasn't personally got to drive out there, and she didn't want to get mixed into it. But she said, tell them I test to Travis and you's character, your ability as builders, and that if you say what you do, you're going to do it, because she's known us a very long time. And every one of those realtors has been realtors for over 10 years. And Linda Sizemore, who has been for over 40 years, if that woman says it doesn't drop your property values, I would lean towards she knows what she's talking about. The improvements that we've already made, we stated that the land had regressed, and we've made improvements on the last 3 months. Several of the neighbors in this meeting tonight have complimented myself, my husband, and my children for how hard we've worked out there, made the improvements in the short amount of time that we've owned it. Now, something that was brought up, and I know for a fact that you guys had these letters. I had 2 different people that live in the subdivision send me letters that they are not against this being zoned agriculture, and I would like to read those because I thought they would be brought up last week and it wasn't. So Josh and Rachel LeBounty live at 4111 East Eagle Crest Drive. My name is Rachel LeBounty. My husband Josh and I live at 4111 Eagle Crest Drive, and our house backs up directly to the land that Travis and Bridget Bearden have purchased. We have had the pleasure of talking with this couple several times, and they have gladly and honestly answered every question we've had concerning their intentions for their land. They have done more to make that land look clean and well taken care of in the first week or 2 they owned it than the previous owner did in the past 6 years that we have lived here. We fully support them in their request to have their property zoned agriculture and believe that they will be excellent neighbors. We know that that land could have been sold to anyone for any purpose, and we are thankful that the Beardens are the ones that purchased it and have good, honest intentions for it. Thank you for your time. She sent that to me Monday, July 8th, 2019. The next letter I have is from Sharon Billings. She lives at 4203 Eagle Crest Drive. Just a quick note to let you know it was a pleasure to meet you on Saturday, July the 6th. I appreciate you taking the time to share with me the plans you have for the property you and your husband purchased adjacent to mine. She lives directly in front of us. I am also very impressed with the improvements you have already made in such a short time, as this property has been an eyesore as long as I have owned my home in Eagle Crest Division, approximately 10 years. An eyesore. I look forward to being neighbors and will not be opposing your efforts to have it rezoned. That was sent Monday, July the 8th, 2019. So when neighbors get up here and say everyone is in agreement in the subdivision, that is not a fact. There are people in the neighborhood who don't mind it being rezoned agriculture. There are people in the neighborhood that appreciate the improvements that we have made. And like I stated, there are people in this room that have given us hugs, told my kids, hey, we're impressed, good job, especially my 14-year-old, running a tractor, brush hogging after the floods that our state went through in a national disaster. That's the only way that we could get that mowed. And my kid's out there on a tractor brush hogging. Now, with that being said, we wanted to state facts. And we could go on and state emotional things, because this is very emotional. It's emotional for my kids. I wanted them to be here tonight because, first of all, our oldest, he wants to do public service. He wants to get a degree and be a lawyer. And I think this is great for him to see how things work. But second of all, we're a family. A lot of people said that this was not personal. Don't take this personal. It's hard not to take it personal. When the things spoke about us were very personal last week. They weren't facts presented. It was what ifs, misconceptions, and we are stating facts. Your city planning and zoning department has highly recommended this needs to be zoned agriculture. The land usage map that you guys hired an outside company to do, that's their expertise, much smarter than any of us, obviously, in 2010, and it got passed in 2012, said that land, where it's located, the floodplain, needs to be zoned agriculture. We're the people that, unfortunately, unfortunately, are the ones that purchased it. And we do have a dream for our family, like all the other people talked about how much they've invested. We've invested in our land. We've invested in our kids' future. Our kids go to Hilldale. We pay taxes to Hilldale. We have more of an investment than anybody in this room because of those kids and because they're in Hilldale School District. That being said, if you guys have any questions for us, we're available.
Thank you, Ms. Bearden. I think we'll go back to C. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there a further discussion?
Madam Chair, I just have a question for Ms. Callahan, just for a point of clarity, that the amendment as proposed on tonight has not appeared before the Planning Commission.
That is correct. The initial request was for the 118 acres.
Why did it not go to the Planning Commission?
It was not something that was brought up or agreed upon. It was suggested. I suggested it. We talked about it, but it was one of those that the Beardens had decided to move forward with the 118 acres.
The reason I ask that because ordinarily it's difficult to try to overturn or approve an amendment that was rejected by the Planning Commission if they have not had a chance to actually hear the actual amendment.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Did Mr. Tucker need to clarify the motion?
Yes. So the motion will be, and Councilors Reed and Van, make sure that this incorporates what you were requesting. So the motion will be to deny the original request and amended request to rezone the subject property as embodied by proposed ordinance 4076A, which is the one that was passed out, and further to direct staff to investigate the future land use map as it relates to the area at issue and bring forth any recommendations for modification.
It is my motion.
It's my second.
All right, anything further? Are we ready for the roll call, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, ma'am. And a vote in yes, a vote of yes will be in favor of the motion. So a vote of yes will be to deny the application.
Thank you.
So yes means no.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Tucker.
So if you're not in favor of the application, a vote will be yes. Everybody got an understanding of? Okay.
Okay, roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Patrick Kale,
Yes?
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Derek Reed,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes. And the motion carried. With that, we'll go to item 17.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of resolution number 2776, amending the land use map regarding property located on North 24th Street, more particularly described in the resolution, from single-family residential district to multifamily residential district, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the land use map of the city to reflect said change.
Thank you, and we will open the public hearing. Ms. Callahan.
Yes, this is a request to amend the land use map to allow for an R4 multifamily zoning to be placed in the area. Just a minute. The property is located at 24th and Military. Right at the corner of 24th and Military, it is currently zoned the R4 multifamily. This is the area shown on the aerial that you'll see the outline for amending the land use map. The resolution is to amend the land use map. It's lots 25 and 26 of homeacres. It's adjacent to a land use map identification for the regional commercial corridor, commercial area, and this is a compatible transition zone from the commercial to residential. Staff, Planning Commission, and Public Works recommend approval.
All right, no one has signed up to talk about this. So we need to close the public hearing, and then the council can discuss the matter. Do you have anything to discuss?
Move for approval.
Second.
No discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 18.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance number 4077A, rezoning the property located on the southwest corner of North 24th Street and Military Boulevard, more particularly described in the ordinance, from R1 Single Family Residential to R4 Multifamily Residential, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Ms. Callahan. Oh, we have to open the public hearing. And then Ms. Callahan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is a request from the Greater Muskogee Community Foundation. They are now the owner and applicant. Before you is an amended ordinance, and that is in the span of this application and the process, they have closed on the property, and they are the owners, the Greater Muskogee Community Foundation. So we removed the PNC Trust that was initial owners. But it is a request to rezone the south half of lots 25 and 26. The north half is already zoned to the R4. This is from the R1 single family to the R4. It is to allow for a multifamily senior living facility. This is the area that's outlined in red. It'll take in from 24th south. And this shows a larger surrounding area of where the housing development's looking at going. To the north is currently zoned the R1 single family residential, and it is church or lodge parking lot. To the northeast is currently zoned the R1, it's vacant land. To the east is R1 single family residential, and it is also vacant. And to the west is zoned R1 single family residential. There is one or two single family homes on that to the west. The site itself is half R4 multifamily residential, and then to the south of that is currently the R1 single family residential, and it's vacant land. This was taken from the church parking lot to the north. So the request shows there to the R4 multifamily. It does comply with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. Staff, Planning Commission, Public Works recommended approval. Be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here also if you have any questions.
Thank you. No one has signed up to speak, so we will close the public hearing and see what's on the mind of the council.
Tish, is the only change to the ordinance that you passed out the ownership?
Yes.
Okay.
We were informed that they did close on the property, and we felt it just proper to change the ordinance to reflect just the current
So
owner.
if there is a motion to approve, it will be to approve the amended ordinance as presented, reflecting the change in ownership.
Yes.
Move for approval as stated.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I failed to mention in the last item that we have been in contact with the church old agency, which is right next to the property, and they were favorable of it and excited about the possibility for some new development to go in that area.
I think it'll be a good addition for the area. I don't know that having to, between 24th getting widened and repaired and sidewalks, then having the senior housing would be a really good addition.
Anything further? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 19.
Consider approval to authorize the city manager to negotiate a contract with Olson for engineering services for 1, the Hilldale School Access Improvement Project, a joint project amongst the city of Muskogee and the Muskogee Creek Nation, as well as 2, the Smith Ferry Road Drainage Project, a project of the city of Muskogee, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Riley.
I like that, Mayor.
I think Mr. Johnson had something he wanted to say. We may not need to spend a lot of time on this. So is that correct?
I had asked staff to look into this item, and after discussing with staff, they were going to look into something, and there really wasn't enough time this afternoon. And what I would ask is that we table this item until the 26th, and give staff enough time to look into a possible just option. We don't know if this is possible, but it would give to staff enough time to look into it, and I'd like to table. I would make a motion that we table it until the 26th, our
Second.
next city council meeting.
Second.
Third.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 20.
Consider approval of the appointment of Evelyn Hibbs to the Planning and Zoning Commission to serve a 3-year term beginning September 1, 2019, and ending August 31, 2022, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Hibbs.
Yes. I am going to learn something new, I understand, so yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Is that a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
You want me to motion my own, huh?
She's taking my position. I'll second it.
All right, roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. No one has signed up to speak to us, so we are adjourned.